Hi everyone, happy Wellness Wednesday. I'm Dr. LuLu, and today I'm going to be talking all about ways to boost your immune system. So I'm going to be reviewing some signs that you might be having a depleted immune system, my top tips for recognizing that, as well as some things you can do to boost the immune system. So I'm super excited today. Thanks for joining in. If you have any questions about how to boost your immune system, put them in the chat and I can respond down there to everybody. So let's get started. So let's talk about the immune system first of all and why it might be having some difficulties, right? Maybe you're experiencing some things I'm going to be talking about. So when we make, first of all, poor dietary choices, that's a huge way that our immune system is affected. And we can also think about stress, right? So our body is a natural stress response, cortisol, the stress hormone, and that is one of our hormones that really impacts the immune system. And when we're in a state of a potential threat, you're more likely to have this cortisol hormone accelerated, right? It increases in your body. And so suppose your immune cells, hey Rachel, thanks for joining. If your immune cells are impacted by that specific adrenal response or stress response, you're going to have a depletion in your immunity's ability to respond over time. So as you're in this, there's two spaces or two aspects of your immune system in the response to stress. So you have, hey, thanks for joining. So you have your acute stress response, and that can be our natural stress response from, an everyday occurrence. Like let's say we forgot to plan what we're having for dinner, right? Super easy. Or maybe you're in a chronic stress situation, like the pandemic is a great example, where your body is having to deal with all kinds of stress in a daily basis, and that makes your cortisol response, that stress response, is going to be accelerated over time, having your body have a depleted immune system. So what are some of the signs you might be experiencing if you need an immune boosting reset? Hey, thanks for joining. So first of all, let's talk about the brain and the adrenal system. So you might be having some brain fog, some memory issues, hard to focus and concentrate. So that's our brain's response when and the adrenal system is on overload. Now also we have the gut and brain connection. So that gut-brain connection has a lot to do with IBS, constipation, diarrhea, dysbiosis in the gut, which means the gut doesn't have the proper bacteria. So that part of the gut-brain connection is highly affected when we're in a state of stress. Now also we have the adrenal system. Then when we're in a state of stress, our adrenal that stress response then changes, causing a lot of adrenal fatigue and a decrease in our energy. That can also roll over into mood changes and sleep disorders. So if you're experiencing any of those things right now, it might be a sign that your immune system is not functioning up to snuff, so to speak. So we want to boost that immune system. So what that does is that it allows us to be in the best space, right, then to combat anything. Another thing I wanted to mention, of course, is systemic inflammation, is joint pain and even showing up with rashes and itchy skin. So our skin is a reflection of the gut. And so when we're having dysbiosis in the gut, that gut-brain connection is off because we're in the state of stress, then we can have that show up on our outside environment, mainly the skin. So that's another one that I see often a lot when patients are in a high state of stress. So let's talk about how we get run down in general, right? So what happens to us when we're in this space where we're getting run down? So we have external factors that affect our environment, and we have internal factors. These are all of the cells in the body, the immune cells, the cytokines, everything we need to fight off, quote unquote, an attack, right? So when the external factors come into play, that immune system is decreased, as well as the internal factors. So stress, of course, is one of our biggest external factors, right? And then how we handle stress. How does it affecting our environment and immune cells? Trauma is a huge one. Now trauma, and we've been experiencing a lot of like PTSD from the trauma of the pandemic over the past 2 years. And so trauma affects our immune system. It depletes the immune system. Studies have shown when we're in a high state of stress, our immune system response, the ability to respond quickly, as well as the immune system's ability to have a sustainable response decreases. So that's important. Another one is exhaustion. Of course, if you're exhausted, your adrenal system is not functioning properly, you're so fatigued, you're not even going to be able to muster up the strength to have an immune response, right? So that immune system is very depleted because of the adrenal system's. You could think of it like a car, right? Running with fuel. If you're only putting like a drop of fuel into that car, it's not going to be able to go down the hill, right? It's the same way with our immune system. We're only giving it like a tiny bit of response. It's not going to be able to have a larger amount of oomph, those immune cells, that response that it needs to actually counter an attack. So a poor diet, this is a huge one. Eating a lot of, when we're in that space of stress, we have a natural response to foods that maybe we've been trained to eat in our mind, or our parents brought us up. So maybe some comfort foods. And when we're busy, we start to go towards those foods that aren't serving us best. Those inflammatory foods like sugar, dairy, gluten, etc. All of those decrease our body's natural ability to function well in an immune response. And then also exposure to toxins. That is a huge one. So we have, we're living in a different age of time in 2022, and everything in our environment affects the way that we respond to toxins, right? So we have pollution. Hey, thanks for joining. We have pollution in our environment that makes our body have to respond differently to toxins. We have the things that we breathe. We have EMFs. We have toxins in the foods we eat. All those external toxins change the way that our body then responds with an immune response. So let's talk about the internal factors, because there's a lot. Our body is this wonderful yet complicated system and has lots of different things it needs to respond with. And so one thing I wanted to mention is recent illness. So if you have had a recent illness, whether maybe you had COVID and your body is trying to recover from that, or maybe you've just had a cold or a flu. I had a little weird cold over the weekend. And so if you have had a recent illness, it does lower that immune response. So it's important that when we get right back on track and support the body's ability to have that natural response. So that's important. Also infections, especially gastrointestinal infections, candida, SIBO, yeast infections, all of those can trigger the body's immune response to be decreased. Because you could think of it, we have this huge immune system in our gut, the GALT. And if that stomach, the abdominal area, the digestive system is constantly having to fight off bad bacteria or other microbes, yeast, etc., it's not going to have that energy again to work on the overall immune system, have that massive response from the immune system and the response from the lymphatic system. So it's important to have your GI system running well. I always recommend taking just a low-grade probiotic, even 2,000 IUs. That's going to help boost your GALT all the time. Really having that gut immune system being really strong. So let's talk about the mindset piece, the negative emotions and negative self-talk. So when we're maybe depressed or have a lot of anxiety or worry about situations, it causes our body to go into this tape loop, or our mind, that emotional piece, to go into a tape loop of negativity. So we really have to change that mindset, change that positivity for a different outlook. So when, it's really key to recognize, I'm going to talk a little bit further about self-care, but recognizing when you kind of get into that pattern or tape loop, so to speak, of negative talk, that can be really detrimental for the immune system. So I mentioned the gut. One thing I didn't mention I wanted to go back to is leaky gut. So leaky gut is all about permeability. So if you're suffering from leaky gut, what happens is we have these cells that are tightly interwoven together. They have a locking system, so to speak. When they start to become looser, particles then, hey, thanks for joining. When those particles start to, the tight junctions, the cell junctions, they start to get further apart, things start then to go out through those junctions of the large intestine out into the bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there. And so then what happens is our body will have an immune response. So if you're having leaky gut, which has a lot of other symptoms, if you're having leaky gut, your body's immune response is like always triggered, which then causes a lower response down the line if your body needs to have those immune cells, either the neutrophils, which are new to the scene when a new response is needed, or lymphocytes. So when we have those immune cells having a lower response, we're not going to be able to act as quickly. Also, if the blood sugar is too high or too low. So our adrenal system, you can think of what our adrenal system does is it controls or helps manage salt, sugar, and sex. So sugar is the key point there when it comes, if we're eating a lot of too much sugar in the diet, or we're not eating regularly because we're busy during specific intervals throughout the day, it's going to change our blood sugar. And the adrenal glands, when they're in a high state of stress, they're trying to balance that blood sugar all the time to give your body the best energy, right? To run from that bear behind you in that sympathetic stress response. So it causes that blood sugar response to shift. So it's really important, like I mentioned, to have that whole foods diet, that whole foods nutritional plan, but also eating one that's really low in sugar so your body can mount that response that it needs. So that's really important. And another key piece is also if you have had to take antibiotics. So antibiotics, hi, thanks for joining. So if you've had to take antibiotics, what that can do to the digestive system, studies have shown that it can take up to 6 years to get that microbiota, that microbiome back to quote unquote normal. So antibiotics can really reduce actually. So of course they're going to fight off something in that immediate situation. But then over time, if we need to have that additional immune response, our immune system is lowered because we don't have that good microbiome. So again, like I mentioned, it's really important to be taking that daily probiotic, or if you've had a course of antibiotics, to take a much stronger IU. Like sometimes I'll recommend even a 50,000 IU, billion probiotic to really get in there and want that microbiome to be populated with all this great bacteria. Super important. Okay, let's talk about some things. These are kind of like my go-tos. If all else fails, when we get like super busy and you're like, okay, I don't care. I'm so tired. I can't do anything. These are the go-tos that no matter what, you want to make sure these are happening. So if you feel like you're just going to push through, right, and make it happen, that's the signal to your body that you really need to take a break and rest and not give it extra caffeine and energy drinks. Because remember how I talked about the adrenal glands managing our cortisol response, our stress response, our blood sugar. So when we give it this false sense of energy, you're going to have a skyrocket up and then a complete crash. So when that's really bad for our immune system to have this constant like up and down. So when you're in that state of exhaustion, like I mentioned with fatigue, don't go to those energy drinks. It's going to actually send you down the wrong road. Also, I talked about the emotional component, the positive emotions, and hey, thanks for joining, that negative self-talk. So it's really important when you're in that state of, excess stress coming on, that you're not doing that self-judgment. You're letting yourself, okay, hey, I'm busy. This is okay. I'm in an excess place of stress. Maybe you're going to ask for more support from your family members, but not judging yourself for maybe feeling a little bit under the weather, being fatigued, but really having that great place to be in a state of calm and peace. That will really help your immune system. And also not relying on medications, maybe having supplements and herbs are really important to bring in during this time of stress. So don't go to medications because they're going to suppress your body's natural ability to have an immune response. So if you're like, okay, maybe you're having headaches, that can be a common sign that your immune system is depleted. So maybe your go-to is that you reach for an anti-inflammatory. Well, that's suppressing that immune response. That natural, your body wants to have that response. So you really want to have a different go-to, a different toolbox, so that you can pull in the natural herbs or natural supplements or water, right? So that you can hydrate the body and get things flushing and moving through. So those are some of like the main like don'ts. You want to make sure you're really taking care of yourself if you start to go into that place of parasympathetic mode, that high stress mode, and you can recognize that in yourself. But if you're in a state of chronic stress, some people have an addiction to chronic stress where they feed on that stressful environment. So you might need to do some self-reflection, do some investigation for yourself, do a little like stress journal to really see if this is a place that you go to all the time, and start to recognize it and bring yourself out of that sympathetic state, which is that running from the bear state, where that fight or flight, into the parasympathetic state where we're resting and digesting. This is when our immune system is able to function fully, right? So now I'm going to talk about my 5 ways to really boost immunity naturally. And I also wanted to let you guys know, I'm not going to be talking about a lot of herbs and supplements and things during this talk here, but if you go to my website under Empower You, you can also find this in my tap link bio. If you go to the Empower-U and the webinars, there's one I did last year on the 7 ways to boost your immune system. And that is an awesome one. You can watch the webinar and you can download the guide. And in there, I give lots and lots of tips on different mushrooms you can take, exercise, sleep. That's a really great one. So you can have that in addition to the one today. Okay, let's talk about these 5 ways to boost your immune system. So first of all, I talked about that leaky gut picture, that immune system reaction for constipation, IBS, diarrhea. So I want to talk about food sensitivities, because this is a huge one. Because when we have a food sensitivity or food intolerance, let's say, for example, you have a food sensitivity to gluten, which is common. And so when you have that food response, your body is in a natural inflammatory state. It's having this constant inflammatory state. It's constantly triggering inflammation systemically in your body. So when you're in that state of stress, it's really important to not go to those triggers that you know. Right? You're like, okay, I know that I'm triggered by gluten and I'm in this state of stress. I'm going to have this other really great food that I'm going to go to, because you want to decrease the inflammation in the body and not increase the inflammation, right? So eating a healthy nutritional plan is really important. And I have the free guide today to help you really fine tune in a 3-day immune system reboot. And that's going to help you focus on eliminating those food triggers, which are corn, soy, gluten, sugar, dairy. Those are the top ones that have been most studied when someone is in that place of having a food sensitivity reaction. And if you're not sure, you're thinking like, hey, maybe I do have a food sensitivity, but I'm not sure, just message me and I can help you get a test for that, and we can figure out together what's going on with your body if you are having some food sensitivities. Hey, thanks for joining. And again, if you're just tuning in now, if you have any questions about your immune system, pop them into the chat so that I can help you and we can help everybody that's tuning in today, because this is an important topic, how to boost your immune system. So number 2, so first I talk about food sensitivities and food allergies. Very important. Like for me, myself personally, I have a food sensitivity to dairy, and when I'm in that state where my immune system is compromised or I'm feeling a little under the weather, or those signs that I mentioned earlier, maybe you're having some congestion, you really want to take out those major food sensitivities. Hey, thanks for joining. And so the second one is getting enough sleep. Now, we're in a major sleep epidemic, right? So studies have shown that I think it's 6 billion Americans have sleep disorders. Now, if you're in that category already, or maybe you have poor sleep, and let's talk about what that means. So you want to be getting 7 to 9 hours of really great sleep. So when you're getting less than that, so that's under that 7, or if you're getting more than that, like oversleeping, it sends your body a message that something is not right. And then what happens is it creates this immune response. So it actually is not healthy for your immune system. So you really, if you're having problems sleeping, so how do you know, right? Okay, like, well, I know Dr. LuLu, but maybe you're like not sleeping through the night, waking up exhausted, you're wanting to take naps during the day, or you can't even get out of bed because you're so tired. So if you're having some things like some issues with insomnia and you need help, reach out to me and I can help you get back on track for those. But sleep is really, really important part, because during that sleep phase, that is our restoration phase, right? If we don't have the rest, that parasympathetic phase, resting and digesting, our body's not going to have the proper immune response. So number 2, that was sleep. Super key. Number 3 is breathing. I'm going to take a breath now myself. So when we're in a state of a sympathetic response, so the immune system is not able to have that proper immune response, our breathing accelerates, right? If you're running from the belly, like, right, you have that panting, you're not breathing from the belly, taking these full abdominal breaths. So this is really an important part of our immune system's response. And we really want to make sure that we practice some full belly breathing, meditative breathing. And I have some great handouts for that. If you're interested and you're looking for, I have a lot of great resources. One, I have some meditations on my website in the Empower You section. And those are wonderful meditations to really help get you into the place of calming your system, and they each come with a guide. So I love those. You can find those at the bottom of my Empower-You on my website. And so studies have shown that when we are in I would say proper is kind of a strange word. Let's say in a relaxed state of breathing, it changes our body's immune response. And it allows us to, you could think of it like you're greeting the day in a different state of mind. It allows the whole system to breathe. It allows the whole system to have a different outlook, right? When it doesn't think it needs to react to the things around it with this massive stress response. So breathing is really important. And if you're not taking good breaths and you don't know how to breathe properly, now's the time to learn, especially if you're having some of those symptoms I mentioned in the beginning about immune system response, to really retrain. And lots of us have to retrain how we breathe. Because when we're in the excited state of 2022 or the past year, we're going. Our body doesn't know that it needs to relax, right? So really important. Okay, number 4 is boosting the body with vitamin C and vitamin D. These are 2 nutrients that I find key to boosting the immune system naturally. So vitamin C is one of our antioxidants. They're the ACEs, the A, C, E, selenium, and zinc. Those are the vitamins that really help support the cell membrane especially, which is really important when we have, let's say we have viruses and bacteria in the extracellular fluid. So we have a cell, and then we have all the great stuff inside the cell, and then that's the intracellular fluid. Then we have the extracellular fluid around the cell where, our body's trying to fight off things. So we want that cell membrane, right, to be really strong and supportive. It's like a super great healthy cell. And so that way, one thing is that it can fight off things in the exterior environment. 2, it can have a great channel for things to flow in and out of the cell, like toxins can go out of the cell, not stay in the cell. And nutrients the cell needs, especially the mitochondria, those energy powerhouses, can go into the cell. So vitamin C is one of those great ones that we need. And we can get vitamin C from lots of different foods naturally. You don't have to take it, of course, as a supplement. My go-to is always try to get as much as you can from food. But if you have a poor digestive system, like I mentioned before, you might not be absorbing those nutrients. Maybe you have IBS and you have a constant inflammation going on in your digestive system. So what happens is that when you're having, hey, thanks for joining, if you're having these constant inflammatory responses in the gut, your body is not able to absorb and assimilate. So no matter if you're eating well or if those supplements you're taking, you could be just flushing them or pooping them right back out into the toilet. So it's really important to have that gut working well to assimilate the supplements that you need. So back to vitamin C. So there's lots of great vegetables and fruits that have vitamin C. Of course, the citrus family. Some people don't have the best response with citrus, but there's lots of other ones. So the pepper family is really great. Sweet potatoes, oranges, strawberries, the broccoli and kale family, that's the Brassiaceae family. Those are really going to give your body the important nutrients it needs. So that's really key. Also, so vitamin D studies, oh my God, vitamin D is just an amazing vitamin. I really love it. I've seen it really help patients with immune system boosting. It's great for mood support. It's a really important nutrient. It's wonderful for the skin as well. And we get it from two sources, right? We can get it from the sun, but maybe not as many of us are spending time in the sun outside, especially if it's winter. We're not getting that vitamin D that we need. Most of the patients that I tested have an immune compromised situation going on. They have a really low vitamin D. So I recommend getting your vitamin D tested at least twice a year. One, you want to get it, I always test it during the winter to see if we're getting enough of that immune support from vitamin D. And then I also like to test it at the end, like at the end of the summer to see like, okay, where are we at? We're going into winter. What kind of support do we need? What are those levels at? And then of course, how are you feeling? How's your immune response? Have you had a lot of flus and colds recently? How's your mood? How's your skin, etc.? And then the other way we get vitamin D is through supplementation. And it's really important that if I didn't mention this, I'm going to mention it now, that you take vitamin D with fat. It's a fat soluble vitamin. We need to take it with fat. So whether that's you're taking a supplement that is like vitamin D with oil already, so your body can absorb it, or you're taking it with a fatty meal. So you want to take those fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K with fat or with a meal. Super important. So if you're taking a multivitamin that has those in it and you're not taking it with fat, you're just taking it on an empty stomach, it's not going to be good. You're not going to absorb those. So that's really important. Number 5 is practicing self-care. I think this should be number 1 because I really feel that self-care is the key to everything. When you don't have that proper self-care, you're not taking care of yourself, your immune system's depleted, but you can't take care of those around you, and your stress system, the way that you react to the environment, is then affected, right? So proper self-care is the ultimate when it comes to immune system. And I have some great programs for that. You can check out my tap link in the bio for that. I have 2 wonderful programs for them helping with self-care. One, I have the mindset program, Reset Mindset. It's a 5-week program for resetting the body and the mind. And then I also have a new one I just love. It's called Own Your Own Power. It's a 21-day program where I help patients focus on like reigniting that power within, looking at how you're greeting each day from that really powerful perspective. So it really goes deep into journaling and meditations. I love that one. So that's a great one, just as a side note. Okay, so those are my main ways for really targeting the immune system. So let's recap that. I talked about minding your food allergies and sensitivities. 2, getting enough sleep. And if you need a natural sleep aid, just DM me. I have lots of great recommendations. I love talking about herbs, and I have lots of herbal recommendations for sleep. Also, breathing. We talked about breathing, making sure that's a big part of your daily focus and routine. I'm a huge component and believer of meditation. I meditate every day, at least 10 to 15 minutes to reset my body for the day. And so in that time period, I'm really focusing on breathing, right? Really, how is my body attuned to breathing? So breathing was number 3. Number 4, boosting the immune system with vitamin C and D. And then 5, which I said was number 1, practicing self-care. Excuse me. Excuse me. So those are the main ways. And then I created an awesome guide for everyone that's tuning in today. Make sure I'll put it in the link here, and you can also go to my website. Oh, excuse me, my throat is really dry today. I need to hydrate. So anyway, I created this awesome guide here. There's a little picture here for everyone. Anyway, I won't show you the picture. But what I did is I created a 3-day food guide for recipes and what to eat to really boost your immune system. And it's going to remove all those food sensitivities and allergens that I talked about earlier, like corn, soy, dairy, gluten, etc. And so I talked about what to eat for breakfast, what to eat to lunch. It's got lots of healthy nutrients. Example is like an immune boosting smoothie with kale and spinach and banana and flaxseed, things you really need to start your day off right and get that immune system up and running, so to speak. It also has dinner, so you get your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner for each day. And this is really going to help you really fine tune your immune system, right? And this is something easy that you can do if you get off track. So you can download the guide. It's got everything I talked about today, as well as the recipes. And you can find that on my website or in the tap link bio under the webinars. I'm going to put the link right there for you, and in the chat, the messages here, and on my website. You guys will be able to find it anywhere you need, or DM me if you can't find it. I'll send it to you. So as we're wrapping up things today, I just want to let you guys know, if you need more help, you can schedule a one-on-one consultation with me. That's super easy. You can do a free discovery call, or if you're ready to jump in, we can do a first office visit, and you can find out that information in my tap link. Also, I have an amazing detox program starting on February 2nd. This is my 21-day genetic detox program. This is going to help completely reboot your immune system. It's going to really help target all those things that I mentioned in the beginning that is going on, having fatigue, having poor digestive issues, having itchy skin, having constipation, diarrhea. We're going to touch all those things. And once a year, I do this program where it's with me, guided. So this is a great time to jump in and have me be part of the program. And also with this great genetic detox, you get a 30-minute free consultation with me, which is priceless. So we want to find out more, go to my tap link, and you can scroll. It's super easy. You'll see the programs. Scroll over and see the genetic detox. So I hope that you can join us. I'm super excited about that. It's going to be awesome. And cheers to everybody's immune system. This is going to be an amazing year, 2022, where our immune systems are just like highly on board for getting us through the year. So thanks again, everyone that joined in today. It's my joy to talk to you and to meet you in this virtual world. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great one.